Hello again. Welcome back to your 5-minute devotional stop with me, Amy Phillips. I'm on a journey moving from fear to faith, and I hope you'll join me for Just Believe. Hello again. So I came to one of my favorite Bible verses this week. I love it because it feels like it answers the question that we wonder sometimes. Is this really the right path, even though it seems like I'm walking in circles? The answer is yes. Sometimes we are walking in circles because God knows what we need and when we need it, but we are getting somewhere. So I'm reading in Exodus now and following Moses' story. You know the story about the mom. She puts him in a basket in the water, and Pharaoh was killing all the babies, but Pharaoh's daughter pulls him out and ends up raising Moses as an Egyptian. As a young man, he murders an Egyptian who's hurting one of his fellow Hebrews, and not surprisingly, Pharaoh wants to kill him. But take a moment and just think, this isn't just Pharaoh, this is actually his adoptive grandfather. Truly has nothing to do with my point, but I just still think that's so fascinating. But so he flees to Midian until God shows up in the burning bush and tells him to be the deliverer of the Israelites from Egypt. Lots happens with the 12 plagues. Bro, let the people go already. Even the Egyptians are getting irritated with Pharaoh. So he finally does, and then we get to this verse. Exodus 13:17. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road through the Philistine country, though that was shorter. For God said, if they face war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt, ready for battle. I just think this is the best. God could see the whole picture. He knew what was in their hearts. He was deeply committed to their freedom, so much so that he let them walk around for longer than they needed so that they would avoid being pulled back into slavery. I wonder how many times in my own life has God rerouted me, knowing that I couldn't handle the fight that would come if I went that way, and run back into my old patterns and away from him. I'm so grateful for God's sovereignty and perspective on things. But what gets me is that it says they went out ready for battle. I just see God in great love and compassion saying, isn't that so sweet? You thought you could fight that battle on your own. But God knew what they needed. He knew if they went to war, they would run back to Egypt. Now, don't hear me belittling the Israelites, because I'm pretty sure God looks at me with such love in his eyes and says, oh, look, she's going to go do her own thing. But she doesn't even know what's coming. I'm going to reroute her so she doesn't run back to the enemy's captivity. That brings so much peace to my heart. Sometimes we're so ready to go where God is taking us and we think, I've got this. I'm gonna get this thing done. But God knows whether we can handle what's coming. He knows our hearts better than we know our hearts. He knows what will be too fearful for us, and he knows what we can handle. So it reminded me of that verse in 1 Corinthians 10:13. It's a verse I'm holding tightly to right now in my own life. It says, no temptation, that is the same Greek word for test, has overtaken you that's not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted or tested beyond your ability or beyond what you are able. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it. So not only is he rerouting us when he knows the way that we would choose would lead us into captivity, but he won't lead us where it could be more than we could handle. David Guzik's commentary says, God has promised to supervise all temptation that comes at us through the world, the flesh, or the devil. He promises to limit it according to our capability to endure it, according to our capability as we rely on him, not our capability as we rely only on ourselves. So not in our own capabilities, but in the grace of God, we can handle these things. The verse itself is focused on testing or temptations, but I think it can be used in all circumstances because God's promises to us are so clear in many other verses. 2 Corinthians 9:8, he says, God is able to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times you may abound in every good work. All sufficiency in all things at all times. Of course, that doesn't mean everything's perfect, but you'll have the grace of God for every circumstance. How about Philippians 1:6? He who began a good work in you will bring it to completion at the day of Jesus Christ. Or 1 Corinthians 1:8, He will sustain you to the end, guiltless in the day of our Lord Jesus Christ. Finally, 1 Peter 1:5, by God's power, we are being guarded through faith for a salvation. What great and marvelous promises. God is watching all things that come to us. He is leading us through them, and He is giving us all the grace we need to be sustained through them and the way out if we need it. Fear has to go when we begin to see this through God's perspective. God will not give us a trial in which He will not enable us to come through. I hope this brings peace to your heart as well. What the enemy meant for harm, God is turning for good. He is leading and guiding you. He is completing the work He began in you, and He will not give you more than you can handle with His grace. He is a good Father, and I hope you believe that today. Do not fear, friends. Just believe. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you feel encouraged and strengthened. If you want to connect with me, you can find me at amybphillips.com. See you next time.